Hello there, welcome back to another episode, or a series of episodes of my show. Basically, last week I did a lot of podcasts. This week I'm back with more normal film-related videos. This is a bit more pulpy than normal, but that's just the way it goes sometimes. Sometimes you're more arty, sometimes you're more pulpy, depending on what you're watching. So, a lot of stuff I'm watching is for another podcast I'm going to be doing with HS Arts, so there has been some watching there that I'm not doing. I'm not doing for the individual videos yet, but I think you'll hopefully enjoy this week's stuff. I'm going to start out with a double bill of Darkman and City of Violence. Now, let's go to Huskers, who recommended City of Violence. And the reason I'm putting these two together, because one's from America and one's from South Korea, but they were both films made by directors who started off in genre and who had a reputation and had successes and failures, and these were like the point in their careers where they just made one to amuse themselves. So with Raimi, it was Darkman. Raimi had started off with Evil Dead. He'd done Crime Wave, which was a disaster. He made Evil Dead 2 to recover his career, and then he did Darkman because he wanted to do a comic book movie, and he went to excess with a lot of the visuals. City of Violence the same way. The director had successes and failures. The director in this case was Ryoo Seung-wan. Yeah, terrible names. And he had some successes and failures, and basically did this one just to make this film, to work with people he liked, and just say the hell with it, do it low budget. I mean, both these films are low budget for the perspective industries. I mean, Darkman was one of those low budget films came out after Batman, but they didn't spend that much money on it. They required the director to do what he wanted. So I'm going to start with Darkman as the main focus of the video, and then I'll go to City of Violence afterwards, because I think that's probably better. Darkman came first as well, and I'm sure people watching it probably know Darkman more than they know City of Violence. So, there we go, there's the plan. Great start to the video, isn't it? Darkman is one of those weird films that it had some behind the scenes problems once the film was shot, because the studio made Universal didn't really they thought they were getting a very standard superhero film. And what they got was a Sam Raimi take on a superhero film, which is very different from a normal superhero film. Sam Raimi likes weird shots. Sam Raimi likes melodrama. Sam Raimi likes ridiculousness in his films. Like, intentionally ridiculous things. And the studios didn't quite get that when Sam Raimi makes a film, especially this period, yeah, it's melodramatic and sincere, but it's aware of the conventions. So it can be sincere, it can be bringing up an old cliche, but also is aware of the cliche, so it will be tweaking it. You know, and visually it's going to go all over the place. So it's a really weird film. It's not quite one thing to the other. It's not exactly satire, but it is very sincere. And it's just strange. It's a strange thing that only Sam Raimi can do. Even when he went on to do stuff like Spider-Man films, those films were very sincere, but also were very silly, intentionally. And nowadays, people look at the Marvel films, look at the Spider-Man films, and Sam Raimi ones and go, that's a bit odd. These are odd. Because they're not as blatantly cynical and not as factory produced almost. The way Marvel has a certain style, and this is something different. And Sam Raimi's always been slightly different from the mainstream. He had his big success with Spider-Man films, but generally the studios have never known what to do with him. You know, the Evil Dead films made a lot of money, but they're not quite sure what to do with them. Even the third one he came back with, after his big successes of like Evil Dead 2 and this one Darkman, he did Army of Darkness, he was sick of doing Evil Dead movies, so he did a big fantasy movie, which the studio cut to shreds. So now you've got like a studio cut, and you've got a director's cut, and on all these various releases, because the Raimi cut is weirder and stranger. So Raimi's always been a weird presence in cinema. He's always been like someone... He's kind of like Tim Burton in the sense that he makes the studios money but they don't quite know where he's coming from, and they don't quite understand where he's coming from. It comes from a lot of it's on his head. So no matter how normal it might seem to them, they know the film's going to come out weird. Hence Darkman. Darkman is really weird, but really conventional at the same time. It's like he's almost sneaked this thing in, like, yeah, it's going to be a revenge tale. Yeah, there's going to be the romance in it as well. Yep, all that stuff you like. We're going to do all that stuff. Yep, we'll go be and make the film. He brings it back, and there's strange scenes of "Give Me That by Bunny," strange shots going flying up people's noses. You've got helicopter chases that go on for ages and are really weird as hell. And as a film, you really need to see the big screen because you kind of lose a lot of it on the small screen. I mean, I saw it in the release in the cinema. I was very lucky because the excesses are far greater in the cinema. They do feel funnier and feel more in place. In video, a smaller screen, certain things don't pop the way they should. Like the helicopter chase in the cinema is awesome because it's so weird. It is basically a helicopter chase shot by the Evil Dead guy, and there's lots of weird camera moves, which you don't really get in the when you're watching TV. You don't get how weird it is because a lot of Raimi's style is how he uses the camera and how he creates these weird bits of melodrama that are really funny but really twisted. And a lot of the jokes don't carry over. In the cinema, it's a really funny film. In video, it's kind of funny. It's not quite the same thing. It's not like telling you visually in the cinema. You do get a sense of, yeah, I'm meant to laugh at this. This is intentionally silly, which I think really screwed up the studio. I think they just didn't have a clue. Like, why is our big action scene a comedy sequence? Like, what the hell's going on? I mean, if you look at the background behind me, that's what the film's like. I mean, it's just strange. It's utterly strange. Whenever Liam Neeson gets mad, he's into a psychotic rage. It's sort of like a 30s cartoon, or like a Three Stooges short, or a Marx Brothers short, or something. It's just, it goes from normal to totally crazy. It's almost surreal. I mean, it's just odd. And yet, as I said, the action scenes always have a weird bit of humour. They're very slapsticky, and it's just strange. And the studio didn't know how to take it at that point. I mean, all the fans who liked Sam Raimi, all the kind of cult fans, knew exactly what Sam Raimi was about. They loved it because it was so different from normal. A lot of directors loved Sam Raimi stuff. But he was going to have keep on problems with his style and studio system. I mean, he followed this up with Army of Darkness, which didn't do that well. Did I just call his Army of Darkness Army of the Dead earlier on? Probably did. Well, I don't care. So there was that. And then Quick and the Dead with Sharon Stone, which came out after Basic Instinct, was a weird western with Sharon Stone as Clint Eastwood character. There was lots of weird shots and lots of weird duels, and Gene Hackman being a really awful villain, a horrible guy, and Leonardo DiCaprio is a guy doomed to die, and Russell Crowe is a gunfighter who won't shoot. Lots of weird, bizarre stuff in there. It was a hilariously weird comedy western. There was a lot with spaghetti westerns, and studio didn't have a clue what to do with that one either. I loved that film, it's great, but it's so weird. It literally is, it casts everybody against type, and just it's just twisted as hell. You know, eventually at that point he realised he had to actually be a bit more sincere and do stuff like the Simple Plan. But eventually the weird Sam Raimi came back up with the Spider-Man films. He found a way to kind of combine what he did, but be a slightly less crazy on the surface. But when you got something like Spider-Man 2, you got a combination of the crazy Sam Raimi and the conventional, and it really worked for the mass audience. But there's still a lot of crazy stuff there's always going to be in his films. There's always going to be like weird melodrama, and I mean, of his 2000 films, Spider-Man 2 and Drag Me to Hell are the best ones. But he kind of peaked earlier. And Darkman's kind of almost like the kind of it's the crazy Sam Raimi exploding onto the mainstream in a way that Evil Dead 2 could just be their own thing because they were low budget and no one cared what they did. No one really cared. It's only horror fans who really care about that stuff, and people everywhere else would just complain about the films and say, oh, they're horrible, and not realise they're comedies. You know, especially Evil Dead 2. And he does this weirdness to him that is still something that's hard to really place. I mean, he's now doing Doctor Strange 2 for Marvel, which is very interesting. Marvel's bringing Raimi back, and it's weird. Weird to see what happens with that combination of his style and Marvel. I'm hoping to let him run loose with it, because I think he's so interesting and weird director. Kind of mainstream, but kind of not. He's kind of like what happens when because him and the Coen brothers started off together. The Coen brothers were much more literate, and Sam Raimi was much more of a cartoony kind of director. And it's funny to watch their careers go like to the more mainstream stuff, the Coen brothers, and they Raimi trying to mainstream, but also been really, really weird. So it's a fascinating career, and Darkman is a great example of Sam Raimi trying to push it still into the mainstream. I've barely talked about the film, but I don't think you need. It's a revenge tale, and you're not really there for the plot. You're there for the weirdness. I would recommend it for the weirdness. I don't want to ruin any of the weirdness, but there's lots of strangeness, and some of the character interactions are weird as well. It's a very odd film, so go in and try and know as lot as possible. But try and see in the biggest screen possible, because if you've got a projector, this is the film to use a projector for. Because it's weird and visually it's odd, and you'll get a lot more from it. So that's Darkman. Now we have City of Violence. I've never seen anything else but this director. I've got one of his films, one of his recent films, which apparently is not one of his best ones. So I'm just starting off this director, really. So it's a nice combination of a director I know really well and a director I don't know really well. But I saw this in Darkman within about a week of each other. They seemed so similar. That kind of sense of a director taking a revenge tale, or that's when it starts off an investigation and ends up becoming a revenge tale, and just infused with every action scene he wants to do and every kind of weird thing he wants to do. As you see behind me, there's a Warriors homage. And basically the plot is very simple. A guy gets killed in this town in Korea. Is a rogue cop comes for the funeral and decides to investigate, and he sees that the official story of that guy being killed by some nameless thugs is a bit dodgy. There's a whole group of these kids who were closest teenagers, and they all kind of came apart as they got older. One went to jail, that was a guy who was killed. One became a local businessman. One became a cop and left. One became a teacher and he's a bit of a pervert. One became kind of nothing, that's played by the director. He just became this sort of like low level, enforcer. And they're coming together and everyone kind of knows there's something dodgy with this death. This death doesn't make sense. And as the policeman starts to investigate, he starts to find himself being targeted by lots of criminals. There's lots of mafia connections to this town, and they want to protect their interests. And basically it's an escalation of, violence. And the whole plot is very threadbare. It's really there to have a lot of action scenes, for the director who wants to do these weird low-budget action scenes, where it's a lot of physical action and a lot of showing off the skills of people he knows and works with. One of them's his cousin. And it's just a delight, because basically you have the plot, which is well done, but it's still a cliche. It's still like Darkman, where it's a cliched plot. You kind of know where it's going. You've seen it a million times, but this film does it so much better than most films because it knows it's ridiculous, and the villain's so obviously one of the friends who was now a businessman. And they didn't even try and hide the fact that this guy is the villain. It's just like you're waiting for the penny to drop with the other characters, that he's gone much further than expected. They always say, yeah, well, you might excuse him, he's a bit greedy. But eventually the penny drops that no, he wasn't just greedy, he was corrupt. And his sister was married to the guy who died. So he's wanting to kill his own brother-in-law to bring this investment of this local casino into the town, which is a dying town. But he's really doing it for himself. He wants to be on top. He wants to rise up and become the top guy in the area. And he's dealing with these like basic gangsters from the other places, saying, "Are you man enough to step up and do what needs done?" And he's like, "Yep." So he goes and he will prove himself, no matter what, no matter who he kills, he will prove himself. So he's hoping to get his other friend to just go back home and not think about it too much. Then when that doesn't happen, he tries to basically get some enforcers to go out and scare him off. And that's when the action scenes start to happen. And the action scenes are just great. They're just ridiculous. And a lot of the time it's just gratuitous. It's like, this could have been a threatening scene, but no, we're going to have a scene where all these school kids chase our lead character in the main street and start fighting him, and he starts kicking the hell out of them. It's just ridiculous. It's just an excuse for some of the most excessive fights the director can think of. And it's great. It's just wonderful. It's a wonderful film. I mean, it's called City of Violence. It's not really violent. It's not realistic violence. It's cartoon violence. Sort of like Darkman. It's cartoon. You can enjoy the hell of it because it's so ridiculous. It's never meant to be taken seriously. It's always like, this is ridiculous. We're telling you right now, this is ridiculous. Enjoy it. It's insane. The film just ratchets up after that scene and just pretty much is like the brother who's a teacher and who's being used by the local gangster and become a heroin addict. Him and his mother get killed, which sets up the younger brother to get revenge. The cop gets beaten up pretty badly. And he's like, he's not going to take this, and he's going to go for revenge. And it all ends with a massive showdown, obviously influenced by Better Tomorrow 2, where the people come together and go and take down the gangsters, every one of them in a stronghold. It's awesome. It's just so crazy. Although Better Tomorrow 2 had gone, these have swords, and they just go through layer after layer of villainy. And they're getting beaten the hell up all the time, but they're still going to keep going and just trash the place and will kill everybody. And this is the big point where the villain's kind of won. He's getting saluted by the gangsters, and his pals come and utterly trash his celebration scene and utterly murder everybody. In my mind, this is so much better than the end of Kill Bill. It's a similar type of thing of excess, in one area, but it feels much more akin to Better Tomorrow 2 and the emotional thing of, we're going to get revenge for all these misdeeds that have happened. Kill Bill feels like a director trying to show off all of his favourite moves from other films. This one just feels like we're going to trash the place, and we'll beat everyone up on the way to get to this guy. And the guy goes crazy because he realises all his advantages are lost, and he starts insulting the gangsters, and he goes crazy too, and it's like, it is wonderful because there's these gangsters we've been seeing for a while who are the enforcers, and they are eventually cut loose to actually go against the heroes, and they get trashed. Everyone gets trashed. There's lots and lots of terrific fighting. I mean, there's nothing in this film that's nuanced. There's nothing that's maybe taken seriously at all. It's just a bit of fun. But because they're sincere with the fact that these guys were all friends when they're kids, they went through a lot as kids and they broke apart and one of them turned bad, it gives them an emotional attachment to everything, even though the film is ridiculous. So it works really well. It's like, what can you do with a well-directed film, even if it's not been that serious? This is a perfect example of it. And it is kind of bizarrely sincere, despite all of the ridiculous plot twists and all the weirdness. It just keeps going. It's happy to be what it is. No apologies, no nothing. So you can get it in DVD over in the UK. You can get it on streaming. I'd highly recommend. I don't want to ruin any of the incidents beyond describing two bits that are like the stuff you've seen in the trailer, basically. Go and watch the rest for yourself. Go and see. Everything else is... There's lots of weird stuff in between what I've described. I've just described the kind of basic stuff here. I've tried to give you just the basic plot beats, but you don't really need that because you kind of know when I said the brother gets killed, you know he's dead as soon as you see him. You know that character's going to get killed halfway through the film to cause a revenge for the second half. You just know it straight away as soon as you see him. So there's not a twist in any way. It's like you're just waiting for the moment where this guy dies. And the whole thing is very predictable, but excessive and wonderful. So it's set of violence. Just go see it. It's just so wonderful. I don't want to say more about it. I just want to say just go see it because it is great. So both of these films are terrific films made by directors who didn't care, who were just having fun. You get to see their excesses come out in a kind of genre plot, and the genre supports them going crazy with their style, and that's what it's all about. Sometimes, you know, I look forward to seeing this director's other films. I've heard of some really good stuff there as well. So, to be continued, probably for this director. So I hope you enjoyed this video. We're back soon with some more. Right, bye for now.